So hi all, welcome to today's BOF on the rise of FOSS and cloud native landscape. Um, I request all of you to look at the pad that is attached to this talk. You can find it in the talk page of this talk. I'm just adding some links and reference to the page. You can also ask questions in the pad. Just a minute. Hi,
Uh, we'll be starting in a couple of minutes.
Sadhya, can we start?
Yeah, we are like,
Okay. Okay. Now we are live. Okay, hi all. So let's start with the starting line. So before getting into the rise of role of free software in cloud, let's demystify what cloud is. Many of you already know it, but we don't even miss even minority of people. We want to clarify them. Um Cloud is nothing but just some other computer, some other computer. Okay, or popularly called as someone else's computer. Uh, from 2016 or 2000 or mid of 2016, we have seen huge growth of growth shift towards cloud. Like కొంచెం ఇది చెప్పండి. అట్లా కూడా వస్తుందా ఢిల్లీగా కలవంటున్నాం. Okay, I've just shared a link in the pad. Just click on this cloud native landscape. Just have a look at it. Um, the CNCF Cloud Native Computing Foundation, which is a sub organization of Linux Foundation, it made an interactive landscape map of all the softwares, all the projects that are working, to uh, shift us toward the cloud computing. So it has a combination of free softwares, the permissive licensed open softwares, and also proprietary software. Okay, so today we'll talk about the free softwares and also including the permissively licensed open software. Okay, I'll start with Kubernetes. I'm sure, like we was talking in the previous talk, the de facto architecture to build any application used to be monolith. Okay. Now, any hackathon I go, it need not in industries are very aggressively moving to the microservice architecture, not just architecture, not just industries. I was attending few hackathons last few months, organized by some colleges, organized by the developer community, independent developer communities. Okay, I was fascinated to notice many BTech students. So when we're asked to build an application, uh, they started they started designing this application as a microservices model. I think I was happy, seeing the progress in the level of undergrad, not just industry and developers, but also the undergrads. Not just microservices. There's a huge rise of adoption of containers. Okay, and also a huge major shift, from virtualization to containerization. Okay, in the same path, we are seeing Kubernetes, Rancher, Docker Swarm, all the container orchestration tools, automation tools that are growing up. We have seen the mammoth success of Kubernetes as a gold standard for container orchestration, and we're also seeing many implementation of Kubernetes into different applications. We are seeing Kubernetes in Edge as KubeEdge. We are seeing Kubeflow into MLOps and other stuff. Uh, Not just this. Not just I'm not just talking in the sense of the the mainly affected ops team. It also fueled the DevOps practice into the organizations. Okay, I I was talking to my developer friends in the recent past. I almost don't know any developer who is not using CI and CD pipelines in the production process. Okay, it, they might be using in the minuscule level. They need not to be doing large pipelines. It could be small pipelines. Could be secret detection. Could be security or scanners or any other thing, or license compatibility, dependency scanning. Okay, all the scanning. So I'm sure all of you also noticed the aggressive shift towards cloud native computing. So I request all of you to make this BOF informal discuss a platform to discuss, share your experiences, share your observations, and also what do you think, how the future will shape in near future, and also role, and especially among all, what do you think the role of free and open source would play in this paradigm shift. So now I open the platform for the members who joined. We have Harisai, we have Satya, Bhavani, Rajkatla, Yuvraj, Anjali, Naveen, Praveen, and I have Bhavbhuti and Raja with me. I request Bhavbhuti and Raja to initiate the discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Ranjit. That's a very nice overview on what exactly is this cloud native landscape is. So to look at this, let's start with for example, Ranjit raised a point on CI/CD pipelines. So I think the CI/CD pipelines has shaped the whole production process in such a way that everything is automated uh, right from the project initiation phase to the deployment stage. For example, if you want to do this linting, I mean, to check the code, to check the indentation in the code. So what we usually do in this software development lifecycle, maybe it's agile, or some institutions will follow this water flow. These are some software development lifecycle methods. we do this linting on premise. I mean, we don't actually automate the process in the usual development lifecycle. What this pipeline, CI/CD pipelines, help us is right from the initiation of the code, right from the snippet that you wrote, it will automatically trigger a pipeline such that it will give you a fail or something. It will let you know that there is something indentation process in this scripts that we write in the whole project, whether it is a documentation, whether it is a markdown file, whether it is an YAML file, whether it is a small script, a bash script, whether it is a small snippet in any programming language. So not just a linting. For example, I added a license to the couple of projects where such pipelines. So this feature is available. For example, in GitLab, there is something called license compliance. What it will do is it will check the whether it's this repository is compliance with the respective license, whether it have or it doesn't have, or what at the stage of the license it has. And if you go dive into this software development lifecycle process, each and every stage the CI/CD pipelines utilizes in a very automatic fashion. With that's where the DevOps culture comes in, if I'm not wrong. So anyone wants to add on this, Bobby or Bhavabhuti or Harisai?
Sure. Yeah. So one interesting point that I've observed recently when I was starting to learn uh, the whole process from development to deployment. I mean, from the start of whatever development that I've been doing, I was always involved in the dev side of it, but not on the ops side of it. But when I started to learn, understand the whole the cloud computing thing, then I understood that it is also very much related to the monolith versus the microservices approach. So in fact, like when I looked at how large some of the large companies, my peers in my company, and how they look at it, they look at applications running in single computing unit. Uh, like for example, there's a React application that is running with a backend Node.js. Many of my colleagues expect both of them to be in a single computing unit, and also they don't expect any other service running on the computing unit that is running both these services. So with this monolith versus microservices debate, like I understood that the very how we look at computing units itself is changing. Like how Raja was saying, like in addition to what Raja was saying, especially in the in the preliminary phases where you're able to run automated jobs to check on some stuff on your development code. In addition to that, we are able to run multiple services, in a clusterized format, which is not affecting each other. Like say, I mean, there's previously there used to be a computing unit, probably running in some I mean, some host provider is providing us with some with some space and some computing power, which can be packaged as a computing unit. So in that unit, generally there'll be monoliths that will be deployed, and you should never touch that monolith, because if it is if it is touched, and if it is probably destabilized, then things will get haywire for production related services. Okay, so this is the kind of approach that we could, like, that we have seen previously. Now things are different with the microservices debate. Your services are not going to affect each other. At the same time, you can run numerous services on the same computing unit. You should just Yeah.
I have tried sharing a image. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Let me share it
Yeah,
again.
awesome.
Right. So yeah, just look at this. So before the uh, components of cloud native computing have been, DevOps culture, the microservices architecture, continuous, not just C, continuous integration or delivery or development or deployment. I think now we have everything continuous. Can we call it, when we were calling it continuous everything. So we were asking you to be the practice of continuous in all the phases of SDLC, continuous documentation, continuous creation or continuous development, continuous integration, continuous testing, continuous packaging, continuous monitoring, along with continuous deployment. So, and the lightweighted nature of containers is also a boost for the cloud native landscape. So let me also share you. So are you seeing this cloud native landscape
URL.
URL in the Etherpad? So I'll tell you a case of one of the recent deployments of Kubernetes. So when the pandemic happened, we deployed around almost 30 instances of Big Blue Button, to serve the needs of the many organizations we are supporting. Okay, uh, it costed because it's 30 machines. It costed too much, for very resource heavy applications like Big Blue Button. And when we're maintaining so many instances, we also need additional monitoring services, like we need Grafana. So for instance, we need another we need maybe not, at least not in the initial phases, but over the period of time we started adding Scalite, to load balance the traffic. So over the period of time, it added, I'm sure the billing, went very, very high. But very well, few months, few weeks, a few months back. So when we're trying to migrate this to, with a auto scale, auto load balancing enabled Kubernetes infra. So we couldn't find any Helm charts. So we waited for weeks, and out of frustration, we made our own Helm chart, custom Helm chart now, and we moved to Kubernetes based infra. It's almost reduced. Uh, More than half of the billing is now reduced. I couldn't see the faces of all of you. What happened? Oh, just a minute. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for example, that matters a lot. For example, non-profit organizations, which they have their own limitations, and and especially in times like harsh conditions, and, like with the COVID pandemic, it was a very good challenge. It's kind of the migration work felt like we're changing the wheels of a running vehicle. Okay. But it's fun learning, writing Helm charts, fixing things. And if you see, so when we were implementing this, starting from Kubernetes, starting from Kubernetes, starting from the monitoring tools, Prometheus, Grafana, all are fast. Okay, even in our beta instances, some of our teammates also using are experimenting with this tracing application uh, with the Fluentd and other things. Like if you just look at Linux Foundation graduated projects, I think we now have 12 or 13 graduated projects, and many other projects in the incubation phase. Linux Foundation kind of uh, uh, been a good, very good, significant catalyst in increasing the presence of FOSS in the growing cloud native market. I will just look at it. But the only worrying part is the interest of the foundation is yet very ambiguous or not clear. We have to see how the time. I think time will let us know who the organization, who the Linux Foundation will serve. Uh, but yeah, I was telling you all the softwares we were using in the production. We have a alternative. Not just an alternative. The FOSS ones are better and very way far good from the proprietary alternative. So, have any of you used Kubernetes or containers in your production?
Yes. So to add to your point, like I would like to share my experience in my one of my companies when I was working with when I was working. So we have developed a project which has a very monolithic approach. We thought it was a microservice, but it was not a microservice right then when we have developed it, uh, because it has APIs, but it is not completely a microservice based approach, which made our infrastructure cost grow very high. So there come this when we are researching on this part, we just got to know that there is a Docker which helps us in containerization, and by using that containerization we can deploy multiple containers in the single host, and we can scale it along, so that reduces our effort and also the cost, and also it helped us in parallel when we are also researching about how this there are tools like Jenkins and all those things, but all these things are very different, loosely, not loosely covered, because each and every platform has its own different approach. So for CI/CD there is a Jenkins, and for deployment there is some other platform. But later we found that the GitLab is one such tool which has the entire SDLC lifecycle inside that, right from the ideation, from the brainstorming part to the continuous deployment. So we took it as an example. We started working on that, and which reduced our efforts drastically. Like even we were able to get to know from what would be the like we have iterated in different scenarios, and we have tested the application in different ways, and we got to know at an early level. So it also helped the project to go forward in a very faster manner, and we got to experience of a daily deliverables, like we got daily deliverables also. Yeah, this and later we started using Kubernetes and all, which reduced the infrastructure cost, as well as it helped. This is a programming perspective, but when you see it in a previous perspective, it helped everyone to understand what exactly is the software development life cycle is. So each and every programmer had introduced into what each and every part of the SDLC process. In monolithic approach, because in monolithic approach, let's see, there is a the ops engineer and the developer doesn't integrate to, I mean, they don't collaborate very frequently or very well. But inside this microservice approach, developer and ops will integratedly work when they combinedly work for the progress of the application, as well as both of them have each knowledge about each and every part of that SDLC process. So that way it helped, it not only helped I mean, it helped all the members of the a firm or any organization to know what exactly a software development life cycle is. But this is very minimal level where everyone is knowing about. It should be drastically gone into, I mean, uh, it should be widely practiced inside every organization right now. It's high time, right?
Yeah, I'll try to add a few points. Recently, I started working on Docker and observed that it made things so easy that previously I used to install things, set up the whole environment and set up the packages, all these things, and it used to take hours. But now I can just directly pull the Docker image and run. So because I'll be just going to Docker Hub and I'll be just looking at the recently updated post and I'll be testing. So, for example, in our project, we need to test a site, and then I need to install some other testing tool, install it in a flash drive, and then install the OS in it. So, coming to GitLab, GitLab have something called secure. Sorry, GitLab something called uh, secure and all these things. It has SAST and all these testing tools, which runs a YAML script where it finds the secret management, all these things, and it pipelines it. Using the CI/CD pipeline, it just shows where the code is broken and where it has found secrets and all these things. So that the GitLab project management suite is cutting things down for developers. It started saving time and cutting things down and automating the tasks.
One more thing, adding to the what Yuvraj said. Maybe a few years back, Docker has said, the installation time from to set up the test environment, okay, or any other environments. I can kind of have a similar kind of experience when I recently started experimenting GitHub. So there's a group of bunch of developers in the label of GitHub. They started picking up free software projects like Kubernetes, and they started building GitHub over it. So earlier, I as a free software hackerist. So when we used to go to people, when we used to do organize workshops, when we used to do contribution sprint hackathons, it was it was it was pain. It was too much of pain, to install before contributing to a project. We have to install the software, right?
Setup.
So it used to, if we used to one day workshop of 8 hours, the installation used to take 4 to 6 hours. By the time everyone, kind of got tired, and had lost all the energy or interest to any contribution. Okay, okay, okay. And also, not just about energy. It's a huge scariest and nightmare for new contributors. So many people used to think, many people who also used to have imposter syndrome. They generally conclude that maybe they're not well skilled to contribute this project. If it takes 68 hours to just install the software, maybe they used to say statement that they might need more time to contribute. Okay, so it's too much of pain. But I have recently, in the last 2 3 workshops, we organized using GitHub. So, so, so they're trying to contribute, almost 25 to 30 projects. It was hardly a matter of 30 seconds to 1 minute, to create to deploy the test environment in GitHub. I also read the blog of Gitpod. So they're telling that, so they have developed Gitpod using open source and free and open source software. They also released the Gitpod community edition in the AGPI with the license. And then they have collaborated with the GitLab uh, the FOSS alternative for the GitHub, Bitbucket, and all the stuff. They have collaborated with GitLab. They have built a native integration for GitLab. Now we are using. Now the things are very fast and smooth. Okay, now we have a very native integration. We just go there. It's a matter of single click. We'll have a test environment. We will have a. If you need any custom configurations, we'll have a Gitcode YAML file. Okay, so even it is very cost friendly for GitLab to host a Gitcode instance, because by design all the pods are disposable. So every time you open a developing instance, this, and when you close it, all these pods are disposed. Okay? So I think it's a mutual win-win for the free software. The growth of free software is also the contributions from the free and open source community to the cloud native projects is also paying back. Getting more contributors or using or removing the barriers for new contributors to join the FOSS projects.
I would like to add a couple of points regarding this breaking this monolithic architecture to this cloud native development. For example, I'm a system administration in a company. So think of a framework application. For example, it may be a JavaScript application, it may be a PHP framework application, or it may be a Python framework application. We usually, what we do in the monolithic process is we maintain a database. We maintain database, web server, or front end, or whether if it has any other third-party services on a single a system or a on-premise application. If we look this kind of setup in a microarchitecture point of view, if we break this into the microarchitecture point of view, in the view of cloud native development, we maintain a web server container, we maintain a database container, and we maintain a framework, for example, a JavaScript or maybe whatever, our framework container. So in the process of this cloud native development, what we do is we can maintain several application of any framework. We just call a web server from some container. We call a database server from container. We call another framework application from container. In this process, we're gonna leverage many problems that already facing as I said admin. For example, we're gonna roll out for different upgrades for different softwares, for example, or maybe different. We're gonna have a downtime from a web server. We have to call this particular web server. The problem that it solves is we just have to tell to an application select another container from that container from web server container. This is where there's auto scaling which is handled with the Kubernetes comes in this process of this cloud native development. Not only auto scaling. Yes, auto scaling is part of this load balances that Rajesh has just spoke about in the beginning. So breaking this type of monolithic architectures, I mean, this is actually a shift in many industries, which is on our company also. We are working to shift to the cloud native development. So yeah, most of us we use this open free software applications as this cloud native development. Most of the free software components in a microarchitecture design has in the public domain in the free software application. We are making use of it. So my point is that shifting this type of architecture on the development of maybe a framework code or maybe a design point of view, and it reduces the operations the bugging operations from there is some continuous point of continuity in the operations which can be automated in this cloud native development. So this is something points I want to point out. If anyone wants to comment on it, please go ahead. we have time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have some
We
time.
have 10 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
I just want to quickly put a point. Especially Raja was pointing out that installation had become like quite easy. I was experimenting with Drupal in Docker, and you'd be surprised that we almost the time that I took around. I was experimenting with Drupal, I think around 3 years ago. Then I was using the traditional LAMP stack method, where you install Apache, MySQL, PHP, and all that, and then you install Drupal over it and all that stuff. That was taking around like a couple of hours, like that. Like it was taking at least a couple of hours. But now I installed Drupal using Docker, and I was able to install it in less than 10 minutes. So a fully functional Drupal website was up in less than 5 minutes, and a website that I was trying to lift and shift. That is, I was trying to create a new instance of the same website. I was doing it under 30 minutes. So it was quite. I mean, the kind of speed that we can achieve, the kind of rapid delivery that we can achieve with this facet is absolutely mind-boggling, I would say. Yeah.
So
Yeah, adding to Bobby's point, and moreover in cloud development, the CI/CD pipelines are like, for example, I can start a pipeline in my mobile and start building a distro just by writing down the YAML file. Just by writing down a shell script and YAML file, I can just start the pipeline and it takes care of the pipeline using Salsa CI or any GitLab CI.
So GitLab is coming with YAML functions.
YAML functions, yes.
YAML functions. Now they already have
Minimal, with minimal.
templates. They're coming with YAML functions.
yes.
They're also coming. They also come with the visual builders for CI.
Visual builders for CI, yes.
Yeah.
So you are automating the things which are to be automated. It's already automated.
So regarding this plausible analytics, there is an interesting scenario which this company has to moving forward. So this plausible analytics is a web application tool, which they earlier licensed under this. Yeah, I think yes, Google Analytics. So it's an alternative for Google Analytics. If you know Google Analytics, it's a completely officer for alternative to plausible analytics. So when they started this project, they released this project under MIT license. So MIT is a permissive license, which restricts other people to license in their different domains, or maybe if they also want to give a some sort of authorship information. So now restrictions are there in this MIT license. So they observe few of problems whether this application when its application is in MIT license. One problem is there are other corporations taking their code and cloning their code and maintaining their software in the server, I mean the cloud or in some system. Whatever the changes they do are they're not getting back. I mean they're not pushing back to the community. So this company has decided in order to address this problem, this company has decided to publish their entire code in this AGPL v3, Aferno Glue Public License version 3. What this license does is, whatever you do in the cloud, or maybe even if you do a couple of changes in the server end program, or maybe if you do some, you have to push it to the community. I mean, you have to do contribute to the community, saying that these are the things that we have done. It might be useful to the community. So that's it. This now what happened to this plausible analytics was there is a continuous upgradation to their software when people started contributing back to the project. So this is an interesting interesting analysis of this changing the license, where there are a couple of other softwares. They actually inspired from this kind of shift to the license, so that the whole community get benefited, or the whole community can invoke this project into many alternatives.
Now that Amazon, Google, Microsoft, going to be the new monopolies of the new cloud computing
Yeah.
domain. We have seen many abusive practices by these companies. So they're using, they're making benefit out of this contributions and development of permissive software. So what did Amazon do? They took MongoDB, they forked it, made little customizations, and launched their own service. They have earned crores of money. They didn't contribute anything back to MongoDB. And MongoDB, like where it has thousands of developers, they're getting no money. Amazon just for doing a simple fork and minute modifications, rebranding is earning crores of money. So that is kind of unfair uh, privilege these companies now hold. With, uh, with access to huge computing powers. This is not just a case of plausible or MongoDB. Many community and company-owned permissive licensed projects are moving to more stronger copyleft licenses, just not to get exploited by these corporations. And there's also apparently one more trend growing. What we call as a dual license. So products can have a dual license. They can the community version can be used in GPL or IGPL 3, and they can have an alternative dual license for the same product, proprietary software. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, as Ranjit said, this is not so new to open source communities because permissive and weakly protected licenses are exploited a lot in the early stages of software development too.
So we have a question. I'm just repeating. Sorry, it was asked in the chat. I'm repeating the question. So a small question since this is a Debian event. What do you guys think of the future of Debian packaging in the scenario where people just use an Alpine Linux pod? So I'll address this in two parts. Before getting into the Alpine version, so I'll talk about how this cloud native things will shape the nature of Debian packaging. Earlier, we used to have a role for FTP maintainers. Now that almost the role was decommissioned. Now we don't have now in the modern paradigm we don't need an FTP maintainer. Things have been changed. I'll tell you how things are changing. Maybe around 5 6 years back, when I started learning Debian packaging, it took me weeks to learn it. You have to manually package things, to do the linking, syntax, and all this stuff. Few days back, just when I was teaching some of the speakers of this conference to tell how to use GitLab CI, I just wrote a GitLab CI in minutes. Uh, Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I just wrote a GitLab CI. It hardly took all the pipelines cumulatively took 5 to 6 minutes to run. The package was made, it was deployed and tested in the same CI pipeline with multiple jobs. Okay, so when the packaging, when it kind of took a month or 2 months to do a packaging, now I think the speed is so fast. Now we are able to do the same work, maybe to do at least 10 packages in a day. With advancement of all this CI. Okay, the
Yeah,
second
actually,
part about the Docker and Alpine, the time is running up. Of course, we have Docker shim has been deprecated in Kubernetes. They have moved to container ID, and people are generally shifting into the lighter alternatives. So instead of using Debian, people are moving into Alpine OS. So So one of the reasons they moved, it's lightweight. We call it. We can't call Alpine as an alternative to Debian because Alpine OS typically falls into the container OS. So the operating system is dedicatedly built with the purpose of to serve the containerization. Of course, the Alpine OS doesn't.
Salsa CI usually does it, including this DFSG.
No, not Salsa. So when you include image, you can mention image. So you can whatever you mention, the image will be put.
Well, this is the first question.
Generally, people are more because so don't need things like systemd and other daemon functions and other UI UX or other programs. Okay. So that's one of the reasons.
So I think this 340.
So I don't think no DFSG rules will be compromised. No DFSG rules will be compromised, but what I think is the developers will find a way to write like the infra as code as a new culture. Now we have a very recently growing culture into the mainstream. What we're calling it as policy as code. Okay, to check to ensure if the Debian packaging is meeting the DFSG rules. Maybe someone can write a CI module to see if the can automate the process of reviewers. And I think maybe we can also contribute. I request all of you to try Salsa CI in salsa.debian.org. I'm sure you'll love it. Okay. And also maybe you can fork the Salsa CI, make some improvements. You can also add more enhancements to it. If you find it useful, if you find these functionalities are useful to community, please contribute back to the community. Make some upstream contributions to the Salsa CI. Even we as a community also working on few enhancements to the Salsa CI we forked recently. I'm sure we're also going to do some upstream contributions to Salsa CI. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I think we'll have
So
to close.
just I'm telling it the second time. So Alpine Linux is not a competition or not a replacement for the Debian. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you all.